Welcome back. We're live on Channel 5 with Esther and Jerry, and later we're asking if it's okay to block drivers from parking on your street in front of your house, and if pensioners should get free train travel. That's up and down the country. Let's just look at the clip I promised you. So this is the Sunak making a joke about Sturgeon, relating to the possibility that she might be jailed.
Nicola Sturgeon wanted to go down in the history books as the woman who broke up our country, but it now looks like she may go down for very different reasons.
You're laughing.
Oh,
You're laughing.
It's funny. It's funny. Come on now. It's funny. And true.
And also put it in context. Down in history was talking about, so he could be talking about down in history for another.
Well,
exactly.
We know. We know what he's doing. All right, let's talk more broadly about whether Rishi Sunak can fix broken Britain. 0207 862 2222. Should say, by the way, on the joke about prison, it has gone to the police, so we'll see.
Oh, it's by a politician.
You never know, they might investigate it. We got round to Lawrence Fox's house, which we'll talk about later. In our recent polls, 73% of people thought that Britain was broken. Prime Minister himself said voters are exhausted and the political system is busted. But in his speech at the Tory party conference, he said he's the one who can change it.
At the next election, the choice the people face is bigger than party politics. Do we want a government committed to making long-term decisions, prepared to be radical in the face of challenges and to take on vested interests? Or do we want to stand still and quietly accept more of the same? You either think this country needs to change or you don't. And if you do, you should stand with me and every person in this hall. You should stand with the Conservatives.
He's in a desert.
He is in a desert. You're right. It's just desert.
He's in a desert.
So, yeah, we'll see his just desert in a second. He announced the smoking ban. He said that an advanced British standard would replace A-levels and T-levels. So A-levels are going. He scrapped the Manchester line of HS2. Of course, we know about that, promising £36 billion for new transport projects in the North and the Midlands. So I'm going to take you just on that last bit. Is obviously HS2 is a big part of it. What's he replacing it with? And the answer is a heck of a lot. So here we see Rishi Sunak in his appropriately just desert. And the whole speech actually could have been called After HS2. And where he focused in terms of, but this is what we're doing, was around here. England, the North particularly, and it's a lot. So let's just take a look. Focus first on Manchester to Liverpool, which is only 37 miles. The Northern Powerhouse Rail was happening, connecting them under Boris Johnson. They're not happening. Then Liz Truss said it's back on. Then it was cancelled by her Chancellor, or rather by Rishi Sunak when he came in, and now he's reinstated it. So that is the litany of ins and outs with that. So then, more, £2 billion for a new station at Bradford and a new connection to Manchester. A new mass transit system in West Yorkshire, but that had been announced and scrapped by Tony Blair and then rejected again by David Cameron. Then trains, £3 billion for upgraded and electrified lines for Manchester, Sheffield, Leeds, Hull, etc. So that's quite a lot as well. Some of this being re-announced, some of it being uncancelled. Already announced, cancelled and re-announced, but whatever. If it's happening, it's happening. I guess it's going to be part of the election pitch for the Conservatives. Let's move on here. So, a new £2.5 billion fund for local transport, landmark investments in roads, A1 from Morpeth as an example. Then this, the Midlands Rail Hub, funding for the East Midlands Mayor, the West Midlands City region getting £1 billion. Why? This guy is the answer. You know, he has done, by any standard, a remarkable job. He's Andy Street, Conservative Mayor of the West Midlands, who's basically said, unless you give us money, I'm going. So it was real gun to the head time. He wanted HS2. He hasn't got it, but they've given the Midlands loads of other stuff. £2.2 billion fund for local transport across all areas in the West and East Midlands, etc. And then more broadly, some money for contactless and smart ticketing. Oh, and by the way, rest of the country, £6.5 billion. I mean, it's mind-blowing. It's not all new. That's the thing. And Esther, we've got into this thing where the Northern Powerhouse Rail, Manchester-Liverpool, literally been on, off, and back on again.
Yes.
Is this the way we do politics now?
I mean, it's unsustainable, and this is why I said he can't be the one to fix Britain, because we keep oscillating between very different visions of Britain. The fact that we can't build anything or even commit to building anything in any sort of long-term capacity.
Would you go with him though if he can stick with this? You want it?
I do actually support this over HS2. Look, I was never really really sold by the whole HS2 project, just because I find there's something deeply irritating for me that the only way to level up the north is to connect it to London. I think if you're going to level up the north should have fantastic infrastructure, much like we have in the south of England, and you should actually be able to, invest in infrastructure there based on its own merit, as opposed to just keeping it connected to London. So I was never really sold on that. Obviously, the second part of HS2, which is in terms of actually the difficulty in building, is easier than the line between London and Birmingham. I understand why, because the costs have inflated. But I wish this was obviously the path that they'd chosen to begin with.
It wasn't plan A. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the thing.
And
this is plan B.
It costs so much to build railway in this country. I mean, we spend 10 times more than Spain does on high-speed rail.
This was meant to be a budget of about 59 billion. It's now 100 billion. It had to be stopped. And there's all sorts of questions for ministers as well. Why was this allowed to happen? Why was it running out of control? We've taken away, Sunak has taken away the contract for rebuilding Euston Station because they don't know how much it's going to cost. So I think this is making the best of our job. Trouble with HS2 is, look, it's a vanity project, wasn't it?
Well,
it's a legacy project. It's a legacy project.
At the very least, they were supposed to have some. I mean, the only part that I was sold on it was the freight capacity.
Yeah.
To be able to transport it quicker between Manchester and
get stuff off the roads.
Exactly. But there has to be another way to do it that doesn't cost us so much.
Let's go to Associate Editor of the Daily Mirror, Kevin Maguire, who joins us as well. Kevin, what do you make of all this?
Well, I think Rishi Sunak is emphasising the conning Conservatives when he says he'll be the change when they've been in power for 13 years. Most of the last 30 years, he identifies. He's been an MP since 2015, never voted against anything David Cameron, Theresa May, Liz Truss, Boris Johnson came up with. He was the Chancellor, he's now the Prime Minister. It's rather like having a firm of cowboy builders in, and they charge you a lot, they trash your house, and then somebody who's been very senior and it says, oh, I'm the boss now, give us lots of more money and believe it will do a proper job. I don't think people are going to buy this.
Kevin, sorry, it might be that at the end of all this, you actually think he's got to the right place, yeah? So HS2 was a bad idea, and all this stuff, it's bits and pieces, but there's a lot there, isn't there?
Yeah, that's what he's gambling on, Jeremy, and we won't really know where we are properly until this time next week after the Labour conference and Starmer and his colleagues have set out their stalls, and then people can compare and contrast and decide which they think is the best solution. But it is, should we say, audacious or cheeky or brass-necked to present yourself as the change when you've been at the heart of the government for quite a few years. It's a narrow path to victory for the Conservatives now. Some would say it's so narrow it's a tightrope.
Let's take a call and see what. Sorry, Kevin. Sorry to drop. Thank you. Stay with us, Ashley in Somerset. Let's see what callers think. Hello, Ashley.
Good morning. Hiya, panel.
Hey, so what do you make of this? It's a big change to all the other stuff, isn't it? Whether he can pull it off.
He's a total joke. The whole Conservative Party are a joke. Kevin, I agree with. Six broke in Britain. They're the ones that broke it. I've got no faith in him at all. He's a compulsive liar. He's completely out of touch with what Britain needs right now.
Well, Jerry probably doesn't agree with that. I think Jerry defends it. You like him?
Yeah, I do like him because
Ashley, hang on, Ashley, let Jerry come back.
To be fair, he's honest and he's competent. And he is competent because he's looked at the mess that was made by Boris Johnson, the mess that was made by Liz Truss, and he said, look, I've got to pull the whole thing apart and rebuild it. I wish he'd done that 2 years ago, but he didn't have the opportunity because he's only been Prime Minister for under a year. I think he's honest and decent. I think that's what people actually want. Whether they vote for him, I don't know.
See, honest and decent, that's what it comes down to in the end. Kevin, honest and decent?
I don't think he's as honest and decent as Jerry makes. Look, he's the Prime Minister. He's desperate. He backs up against the wall. He twists and he turns like anybody else in that position. I think he likes to present himself as that great man of integrity. In all honesty, I've not seen it at all. Just going back to he wasn't elected leader of the Conservative Party. He did a dodgy deal with Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, who'd been sacked for security breaches. And that's how he got the job. I don't think there's anything honest and decent from day one in number 10.
But that's
he might be a nice
that's
guy.
just
He
politics.
might be a nice
It's
family
just
guy.
politics.
Yeah.
I mean, Gordon Brown
rather
was
sweet.
All right, go on, Esther.
Sorry.
He was rather sweet with his wife.
I don't
but
think
he won't
people
win him an
realise.
election, so
I don't think people
Okay,
realise how much.
hang on, don't just talk across each other. Okay, Kevin, thank you.
I don't think people realise how much of a broad church the Conservative Party is, but also the Labour Party. So the Labour Party looks very different from when Corbyn was leading it. And it looks very different. The Conservative Party looks very different now than when Boris Johnson was leading it. The vision is different. So, I mean, one of the constraints is, yes, the Conservatives have been in power for 13 years, but it's been very different people over the course of the 13 years. And that's the problem. Unfortunately, he has to tag his name to the Conservative line.
Let's
but
pause.
it's a
Let's
very broad
pause.
church.
I want to take more calls.